I question this whole idea of intentionally being virtuous. Does one try to be good, or is one good? I think people that are not good try to be good. And then here we have virtue signaling, right? They try to mask that which is not good by a few good deeds here, a few good deeds there, right? And then tomorrow it's completely different. So it's just like learning, right? True virtue is learning. When one is learning, can one be filled and overrun and cluttered with intentions? If one is really learning, if one is really absorbing, if one is really retaining, if one is full retention of what is right now, of the fact, of the actuality, the factuality, is one full of intention? Or when there is free of intent, when there is free of motive, when there is a learning, is that not virtue? Again, I think true virtue is free of motive, right? If you're motivated in a certain way to become virtuous, first of all, that becoming virtuous is violence already, because you're going from not virtuous to virtuous. And the last thing you'll do is remain with the fact that you are not virtuous, which would be a much more virtuous thing to do, to be honest. But this whole idea of trying to become virtuous, that's not virtue. If you're trying to be good, that's not good. So I question altogether if one can have any motive or intent to be virtuous, or to be good, or to learn, or to listen, or to see, or to love. So that means love or compassion must be free of intent and motive. It can't be a result of something. And at the same time, it can't be a self-centered activity. So if there's a self-centered activity or an intent or a motive or a thought involved in this process of learning, then there is no learning. If there is a self-centered process involved in virtue, there is no virtue. So, again, true virtue is when the self is not. That's why we have a word of selfless, right? It's not that I kill the self or I remove the self, but in being, let's go into the word humility, right? Being humble, which comes to kind of low in stature or minimal or, how do you say, modest, right? Almost like cut back. There's no sense of exaggerated intent or motive or direction or movement involved. So if we go to the root at selfless activity, humble activity, modest activity, we come to an activity or action that is without intent, that is without motive, and isn't a result of something, right? Isn't reactionary. Some people live off of other people's actions, and so they have no actions of their own. So they have nothing that is original of their own. And in this sense, can it really be good? So I think good is never a result of something. Good is not a result of any intent. So when one is completely free of intent, of trying to be good, you see the trap here, right? When one is free of the motive of trying to be virtuous, when there is no motivation to be virtuous at all, when there is no intention to be good at all, good and virtue is. Because again, when I'm not trying to be virtuous, when I'm not trying to be good, with that energy that is retained from not trying to be any of these things, to become these things, to have a gradual progression to these things, I can use that attention, which is in the word attention, 10 backwards is net, the whole, in that whole energy, I can remain with my lack of virtue. And in seeing the lack of virtue, I don't have to create an ideal or a concept of virtue and then neurotically follow this thought-created process of what virtue looks like. And hide behind these words of what I think is virtue, right? Virtue is not words. Of course, there is an action, right? And perhaps this action can verbalize and communicate with words. But virtue and goodness is beyond words. It's beyond the verb. It's beyond the concept. It's beyond our ideas. It's beyond our thoughts. It's beyond, again, our intentions, our motivations, our motives. It's beyond all of these things. So we return again. Goodness and true virtue is not concerned with trying to be good or trying to be virtuous. In the absence of trying to be good, it is good. In the absence of trying to escape from the lack of virtue, it deals with its non-virtuousness. That's the only way to be good, is to not escape the evil that is in me. And from that point, there can be a flowering, an unintentional flowering. So again, with intentions and with motives, we escape ourselves. And so, the age-old saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So, that being said, intention, thought, the mechanical realm, knowledge, all of these things, time, the past, plays a role. However, a clear intention arises out of no intention at all. So I hope I've cleared it up and made that clear, that the people who try to be good, don't cut it.